Previously on Magic Gathering Strat, Ice Cauldron.
Oh my god. I forgot about the Ice Cauldron. Arguably one of the most complicated, confusing Magic cards in the history of Magic. To this day, I still don't fully understand it.
And through the drifts the snowy cliffs did send a dismal sheen, nor shapes of men nor beasts we ken, the ice was all between.
Stratters, welcome back to another episode of Magic in 10. This is the third episode. Magic in 10 states I have 10 minutes to talk about a Magic the Gathering card because that's how complicated it is. This week we're talking about Humility, 2 white, 2 colorless, enchantment. Each creature loses all abilities and is a 1/1 creature. This is a static effect. When I say static effect, I mean static as not just the static you see on a TV screen, but the static as in how strong as a bridge is. So let's go take a college course in statics, which is how does it have the strength to stay that way all the time. Static effects are difficult to understand. Let me give you an example. You have Reliquary Tower, which is a card from Conflux. You have no maximum hand size. Tap out 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. It's a land. Then you have Null Profusion. Skip your draw step. Whenever you play a card, draw a card. Your maximum hand size is 2. So if you have a Null Profusion in play and a Reliquary Tower in play, is your maximum hand size 2? Or do you have no maximum hand size? That's the question. It can only be one or the other. It can't be both. The Magic the Gathering has a way of differentiating between these two. If you're a judge and you're called over and you look at both of these cards and you see all the cards in the game state, you still don't know what state it's in. You actually have to be a player to understand what state it is in, because a player can keep track of what order the cards are in play. If you play a Reliquary Tower first, you have no maximum hand size, and then you play a Null Profusion, then your maximum hand size is 2. If you play a Null Profusion and then you play a Reliquary Tower, you have no maximum hand size, and you still get the abilities for Null Profusion. So it depends on the order you play the cards, and that's called timestamps. Timestamps is like a little number that appears in the bottom left of the card in some computer games, and it'll just have a number like the first land you play would just be like a little 1. And just an imaginary number you just have to keep track of. So you have to keep track of the order. If you play another Reliquary Tower after you play Null Profusion, and then you play Null Profusion after that Reliquary Tower, the rules just keep changing back and forth. So Humility is all about timestamps. Let me give you some examples. Here we have a Figure of Destiny, and we're casting Humility. So, how big is this going to be? It says, if Figure of Destiny is a spirit, it becomes a 4/4 Kithkin Spirit Warrior. It's a 1/1. Okay, here we have a Hangerback Walker. It has a casting cost of X. All creatures you control get +1/+1, 2 Glorious Anthems. I paid 8 mana for it. Guess what? It's a 3/3. That's right. It doesn't enter the battlefield with X/1/1 counters on it because the title it doesn't exist. That text does not exist because it lost all of its abilities. So it does not enter the battlefield with X/1/1 counters on it. You paid 8 mana for a Hangerback Walker. It comes in place of 1/1 and gets +2/+2 from Glorious Anthems. I just attacked with a wall. It doesn't have Defender. It doesn't have any abilities. Okay, the one thing about timestamps that people have about Humility is Humility and Opalescence. So first I'm going to play an Opalescence, which is an enchantment from Urza's Destiny. Each other global enchantment is a creature with power and toughness, each equal to its converted mana cost. It's still an enchantment. Now we're going to play Humility. So Humility is, Opalescence is going to change Humility into a creature with power and toughness equal to its converted mana cost. And Humility says each creature loses all abilities as a 1/1 creature. So what happens is Humility becomes a 1/1 creature, not power and toughness equal to its converted mana cost, and it has no text. Yeah. Okay. The one thing about timestamps that people have about Humility is Humility and Opalescence. So first I'm going to play an Opalescence, which is an enchantment from Urza's Destiny. Each other global enchantment is a creature with power and toughness, each equal to its converted mana cost. It's still an enchantment. Now we're going to play Humility. So humility is, Opalescence is going to change humility into a creature with power and toughness equal to its converted mana cost. And humility says each creature loses all abilities as a 1/1 creature. So what happens is humility becomes a 1/1 creature, not power and toughness equal to its converted mana cost, and it has no text. Yeah. To understand why humility doesn't have any text since it's a 1/1 creature, you have to look at the layer system. Wizards of the Coast has an excellent article describing the layer system. I highly recommend you look at it to understand it a little bit better. But to keep this within 10 minutes, we'll look at layers 4, 6, and 7. 4 is the type changing effects, which is applied first. That would add or remove types, subtypes, or supertypes in the object you're evaluating. For example, Opalescence, adding the subtype creature onto an enchantment. Then there's layer 6, which is the ability adding or removing effects that would add or remove abilities to the object you're evaluating. Humility would remove an ability. All abilities, actually. Layer 7 would be power and toughness changes. For example, power and toughness changes from counters that affect power and toughness, not counter spells. I mean, +1/+1 counters. So if you had something like a Spike Feeder, Spike Feeder enters a battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. If it was already in play and you played Humility, it would change from a 0/0 creature with 2/1/+1 counters to a 1/1 creature with 2/1/+1 counters, so it would go from a 2/2 to a 3/3. If you had a Spike Feeder come into play with Humility already in play, they wouldn't have any text in it, and Spike Feeder would come into play as a 1/1. So, we'll look at the specific 2 Opalescences and 1 Humility. This is just for the example of Humility coming into play last. Opalescence, Opalescence, Humility. Humility is a 1/1. Okay, so here's Mishra's Factory. 1 colorless, Mishra's Factory becomes a 2/2 assembly worker until end of turn. It's still land. So if you played Mishra's Factory, then you played Humility, activated Mishra's Factory. Mishra's Factory would be a 2/2 creature. It wouldn't be a 1/1 creature because you activated it after you played the Humility. So the timestamp for activating the Mishra's Factory would be later. If you activated Mishra's Factory and became a 2/2 creature, then played Humility, the Mishra's Factory would be a 1/1 creature with no text, and it would not tap for mana. It would still be a land, and it would still be a creature. It doesn't matter the order you play if an instant card with Humility in play, like Mighty Leap. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains flying until end of turn. If you play a Mighty Leap and a Humility, the creature still gets +2/+2. If you play Humility and a Mighty Leap, it gets +2/+2. Same thing for other common cards like Giant Growth, where target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Okay, I hope that set you enough to understand the rulings on Humility. So with Humility and 2 Opalescence on the battlefield, we said if Humility had the latest timestamp, all creatures are 1/1 with no abilities. If the timestamp order is Opalescence, Humility, Opalescence, the second Opalescence is a 1/1, and the first Opalescence and Humility is a 4/4. If Humility has the earliest timestamp, then everything is a 4/4. You should have been able to decide that from what I've already said. Second ruling, removes all creature abilities. This includes mana abilities. Animated lands will also lose the ability to tap for mana. We saw that for Hangerback Walker. We saw that for Mishra's Factory. Third ruling, this is the current interaction between Humility and Opalescence. The type changing effect applies at layer 4. The rest happens in all the applicable layers. The rest of it will apply even if the permanent loses its ability before it's finished applying. That's how we explain how it seems kind of impossible that Humility is a 1/1 creature with no abilities, even though its ability was to make things 1/1s. So if Opalescence, Humility, and Worship are on the battlefield, Opalescence entered the battlefield before Humility. The following is true. Layer 4, Humility, Worship, each become creatures that are still enchantments. Humility and Worship lose their abilities. 7B, Humility becomes a 4/4, Worship becomes a 4/4. Humility becomes 1/1, and Worship becomes a 1/1. If Humility entered the battlefield before Opalescence, Layer 4, Humility and Worship each become creatures that are still enchantments. Layer 6, Humility and Worship each lose their abilities. Layer 7B, Humility becomes a 1/1, Worship becomes a 1/1. Humility becomes a 4/4, Worship becomes a 4/4. And I've seen with giant growth effects and say Sorcerer's Queen effects. Sorcerer's Queen is a creature for black, black 1. Tap, entire creature becomes a 0/2 until end of turn. Those sort of effects. If you apply a power and toughness changing effects in a series of sublayers in the following order: A, effects from characteristic to fighting abilities. B. Effects that set power and toughness to a specific number or value, Sorcerer's Queen. C. Effects that modify power and toughness but don't set power and toughness to a specific number or value. D. Changes from counters. E. Effects that switch a creature's power and toughness. We didn't have time to talk about that. We only have 10 minutes to talk about this. Thanks for watching.
Friends, check out humblebundle.com. You get hundreds of dollars of games for just $12 a month. It goes in your Steam account and it stays there forever. So, what I want you to do is I want you to join Humble Monthly with this code YM2B9L and support Wall of Ice Cream on his endeavors. And there will be more videos, I promise. We just need more than 0. Go for it. Do it.